It's widely considered the most notorious crime in northern Michigan's history. A family of 6 found murdered in their Emmett County cottage.
It has been 46 years since, and still the Robison family murders are unsolved. Evan Dean takes us through the many twists and turns of this case in part 3 of our special series, Mysteries of Northern Michigan.
It kind of seems like a place apart.
A picturesque town along the shore of Lake Michigan.
I know northern Michigan is beautiful, but it's particularly beautiful.
An Emmett County getaway spot known for its beauty, but also made famous by a tragedy that happened decades ago.
Even to this day, it's hard to imagine that something this horrendous could have happened in a sleepy little town like Hart.
It was the summer of 1968. A well-to-do family from Oakland County was spending their summer at a vacation home that once sat right along this empty property. But in July, the Robison summer cottage turned into the scene of a gruesome mass murder.
It was a pretty grisly scene. They'd been shot and the young daughter had been bludgeoned to death.
All 6 members of the Robison family, Richard and Shirley, and their 4 kids, Richie, Gary, Randy, and Susan, all found dead. Even more horrific, their bodies weren't discovered until weeks after they were murdered.
They were badly deteriorated. It was a pretty ugly scene.
Who would do such a brutal crime, and what could the motive possibly be?
The local deputies weren't used to cases like this. They quickly called in the Michigan State Police.
It obviously wasn't a murder-suicide, they knew that. So they started looking at the neighbors. There was a tree trimmer that had been hired to trim their trees. They interviewed him and all of his helpers. I know they just about emptied any kind of halfway house, mental institution. They interviewed people at the state hospital.
But all the while, police were actually starting to zero in on one man.
Their person of interest at the time, Mr. Robison's business partner, Mr. Scalero.
This downstate man, Joe Scalero, who worked as a salesman for Richard Robison's advertising company. The evidence against him quickly started piling up.
There's time lapses in his alibi.
It looked like Richard had just discovered that Joe had been stealing money from the company.
It appears to have been some embezzling. There was like $60,000 missing.
And that's not all investigators uncovered as they dug deeper into Joe Scalero.
He was also an amateur marksman. He would travel around the state of Michigan and compete in trap shooting events and win.
They went to a firing range where Mr. Scalero used to shoot, and they found 22 shell casings that matched the ones that were found at the scene of the crime.
After a 15-month investigation, police presented their case against Joe Scalero to the Emmett County prosecutor. But weeks went by, and an arrest warrant was never issued.
Well, there was quite a bit of evidence at the time. They had the murder weapon and had a few more fingerprints. I think Mr. Nago, the prosecutor, probably would have issued warrants.
Joe Scalero was a free man. It looked like the Robison family murders would go unsolved. But a few years later, a break in the case.
An ambitious prosecutor down in Oakland County decided, hey, the victims were from here. Maybe I can get an indictment.
And they did. In March of 1973, Joe Scalero was to be arrested and charged with murdering the Robisons. But Joe had learned of the impending charges, and when police went to arrest him, a stunning discovery.
The officers went inside and they found him dead by his own hand. He had shot himself in the head with a Beretta handgun.
The prime suspect in the Robison family murders had taken his own life, and left behind was a lengthy suicide note.
He says, I'm a liar and a cheat and a phony, but I didn't kill the Robisons. Do you believe what he said? He failed 3 polygraphs. He says he's a liar and a cheat and a phony. You figure it out.
Almost 41 years have passed. New technology has emerged. Evidence has been retested for DNA, but it hasn't helped. And more than 4 decades after their deaths, the Robison family murders are still unsolved.
The case continues to be open. Maybe someday the murder weapon may get discovered, but until that time, it'll stay open, and it may remain a mystery for years to come.
And for some, one big question still remains.
And I've always questioned a family of 6, how one person could do it. The question is, did he do it himself, or was there somebody involved with him? That's the question.
Reporting for Northern Michigan's News Leader, I'm Evan Dean.
Author Marty Jo Link says she believes Joe Scalero acted alone in the murder. Police did not comment on whether a specific person has been investigated as a possible accomplice.